Hello, dear beloveds. Well, I am jumping in live today to do a mini masterclass on one of my favorite topics. And, as you know, with the way it works with me is that something just kind of keeps swirling around my consciousness and I can't get it out of my brain. I know that's a really good topic for me to be going live about. And today I want to talk about something that's really been influencing me, which is deepening into my studentship as a student of A Course in Miracles. So I've been reading the text of A Course in Miracles for a number of years now. If any of you have read it, it's a very dense text. It's written largely in iambic pentameter, which is the same the structure that Shakespeare used to write all of his great plays. And so reading it can feel a little bit like you're decoding, something rather than just reading a book. But that's intentional because, of course, the idea is that you're not just knowing with the mind, but you're transmuting or experiencing. And of course, the workbook that goes along with it they go hand in hand. They're really perfectly suited together. But like all great spiritual texts, it's been really expanding my consciousness and challenging me to think about going beyond the trinkets and superstitions, which is one of my favorite things to do, even more. How can I surrender belief? How can I surrender bullshit ideas that are not serving me, that are actually keeping me in a prison? All belief is keeping us separate from God. And the idea that I want to talk about today is that why do we as a collective, why do human beings tend to believe that there is worthiness in suffering, or indeed that we awaken through suffering? So we'll always hear people talking about these moments in their life where something terrible happened, but upon reflection, whether that be days or weeks or years later, they can see that that was the beginning of their rebirth, the beginning of their spiritual maturing, the beginning of their spirituality, sometimes full stop. They never had a perspective on the world that was coming from that spiritual dimension, and now they do. And usually these events are catastrophic, they're chaotic, and they cause a great deal of suffering, even if in time we can see the good that comes out of that suffering. Is this the way it's meant to be? Is this how we wake up? And I want to say quite emphatically that my response to that is no. You do not need to awaken through suffering. But in order for that to make sense, I want to talk about what the opposite is. Why is it that we are so predisposed to awakening through suffering? Is it just because we think at some unconscious level that's noble or worthy? I would say the answer to that is no. I think the answer is in some ways a lot more simple. The truth of it is this: we are in a waking dream state. So we are asleep to our true nature, to our immortal reality, which is that we are the infinite, we are God consciousness, and that we are asleep to that. So we are asleep, we've fallen asleep to our truth, and in that sleep state, God or the infinite is there gently kind of saying, hey, beloved, it's okay for you to wake up now. This is all just a bad dream. The things that you're experiencing are not real. Come back to your infinite nature. And of course, a wake-up call through chaos is often a really loud wake-up call. And because everything is going wrong, we're pretty much happy to agree with the idea that this 3D reality we're walking around in is an illusion, because we want the illusion to end. So this is where it gets really tricky. What if 3D reality, what if the illusion is working really well for you? What if life is going really well? What if all of the human measures of success are lining up really nicely for you? What if you've got lots of abundance, or your business is thriving, or your relationships are happy, or, what do we do then? Because our fear then comes in and says, well, why would I rock the boat? Now, none of this is happening at the level of the conscious mind. It's happening at that deep subconscious level. If everything in human reality is looking okay or even great, then why would I go into a state of believing it's actually all just a dream? Remembering these are not the conscious machinations of your mind, these are the subconscious ideas. So the ego says, don't wake up right now. Why would you mess with this? Everything's really good. If you mess with this, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose stuff. And so it's quite dangerous, in fact, for us to talk about the illusion that everything in 3D reality is an illusion. But it's something that I've done a lot, and I do it a lot with my third level priestesses. I talk about the fact that When we view our experience as good or bad from the level of 3D reality, we are simply buying into the illusion. We're buying into an idea that does not actually exist, remembering that we are asleep. We are in a dream state. But if your dream is really, really good, there's very little cause or motivation for you to surrender that or to wake up in the dream. So there is more than just this, we are predisposed to suffering as a way of awakening, we think that's worthy. There's actually the fear that if I awaken to my true, infinite, immortal reality, and my life is actually working really nicely, that I might lose that. What if everything I love is taken away from me? And this fear, I think, is a greater motivator than the belief that suffering is worthy. I actually think our fear is that our spiritual seeking, which is our only true seeking, by the way, is going to cause us to lose something, even if that something is a dream. And I want to give you an example of this to illustrate from my favorite spiritual movie, The Matrix. In The Matrix, there's that character whose name I can't recall, who becomes a double agent. So he starts reporting to the computers who are running that alternate reality, that are keeping all the humans like little incubators that are batteries feeding the computer that's generating the simulation. He goes and tells them where the resistance are going to be, and he gives away all of their secrets, and eventually, you know, ends up causing a great deal of harm. In return, he gets to go back into the illusion, back into the dream, because he woke up, and what he lost was red wine and steak and all of those things that meant, you know, that he was comfortable, that he was in his zone of excellence. He felt safe. He could have fine wine and fine women, and everything in his life was kind of working at the 11 of the illusion. When he chose to wake up, he was seriously disappointed because, of course, in the movie it's a fictionalization, but he no longer had access to all of those luxuries that kept the ego happy. So here's where we have to be really careful, because unlike the movie The Matrix, when we wake up to our truth in the dream, we do not lose anything, okay? Even though it is a dream and it is an illusion, we lose none of it. We don't wake up from the dream and then leave the dream. We simply have immortal, infinite consciousness and power inside of the dream. Do you understand the distinction here? Because I believe this subconscious fear is embedded in every human, that if we go towards our soul's yearning to awaken, that we will lose the human trinkets, we will lose our lovers, we'll lose our children, we'll lose our marriage, we'll lose our home, we'll lose all of the luxuries or any of the human reality. But I want to put a different spin on it. Waking up in the dream means that you gain the knowledge and the experience, more importantly, of your immortal truth, of your infinite power. And then the dream becomes exactly what it is. You aren't losing the contents of the dream, but you're no longer perceiving the dream as real. You know that everything in it is an aspect of you, including your own children. And that there is never any separation, that you cannot lose anything here because nothing that is unreal exists. So you are awakening to your awesomeness and simply surrendering illusion. And I believe this, my darlings, is the reason that we as a collective unconscious are so afraid of awakening or answering our soul's yearning. Eventually your soul will be answered. You can delay it for this lifetime, for the next lifetime, you can put it off for as long as you want, but that is the cause of your suffering, not the waking up. The waking up is the beginning of your bliss, because it is the consciousness returning to its truth and giving up the madness of the illusion. And that involves you simply being comfortable with your own power, not giving up anything. And that, I believe, is what we're truly afraid of. So next time you worry that your awakening, your journey of awakening is actually the end of something, remind yourself that it is the beginning of your infinite nature now, fully present in this moment. And that is what you came into this world to meet and experience. So much love to you.